On the morning of April 18th, 1906, the Earth roared to life. A massive earthquake with an estimated magnitude of 7.8 ripped apart San Francisco and the surrounding areas. Buildings crumbled, streets cracked open, and gas lines burst, turning this picturesque city into an inferno. San Francisco is probably one of the most well-known cities in the world. Today, it's for Silicon Valley. In the mid-20th century, it was for the large counterculture movement. From the mid-1800s to the late 1800s, it was the Paris of the West. And it all started in 1848 with the allure of riches that was the California Gold Rush and California gaining statehood in 1850. The California Gold Rush of 1848 brought over 300,000 people from all over the world into the San Francisco area. Every single one of them had the same hope, becoming rich. Between the 1860s and 1880s, San Francisco would begin its transition into the major city it's become today. The city would grow out in every direction, adding new neighborhoods, colleges, and famous sites such as the Golden Gate Park. All of this leads us into 5:12 a.m., April 18th, 1906. The northernmost 296 miles of the fault running from San Juan Bautista to the triple junction at Cape Mendocino would rupture over the course of 60 seconds and eventually be labeled a 7.8 magnitude. The epicenter of this quake was a mere 2 miles off the coast of San Francisco, just underneath where the Golden Gate Bridge would later be constructed. The earthquake itself would cause gas lines and power lines to rupture and knock over lanterns all across the city, all of which would contribute to the fire that would later engulf the entire city in flames. It would also break water lines across the city, which would make the task of putting out the fire that much more difficult and further cause death, damage, and displacement to the city and its people. In the aftermath, 80% of the city lay in ruins. Over 3,000 lives were lost, and another nearly 400,000 people were displaced and faced homelessness and despair. In spite of all this, San Francisco's resilience and reputation would show in their process of rebuilding the city. Immediately after, the city would begin to pick up its ruined pieces and start to put itself back together. By 1915, San Francisco had rebuilt enough of the city that they successfully bid to host the World's Fair, as a way to celebrate both the successful reconstruction of the city and the completion of the Panama Canal. Through the World's Fair and the increasing globalism of the 20th century, San Francisco was able to highlight and show off its unique culture and diversity to the world, showing a global audience a city that was now known for resolve and resilience, a city that would show progress for the future. By 1933, construction of the Golden Gate Bridge would begin and would finish in 1937. It would be the world's longest suspension bridge until 1964. Following this period of rebirth and reconstruction, San Francisco would finally begin to go through the events that we now know define it today: counterculture and tech. As we hit the 1950s, the counterculture movement would begin to take place in the city, highlighted especially in the 1970s with the Vietnam War. Also, the gay rights movements would really start to begin and take hold in the 1960s, 70s, and 80s. Finally, by the late 20th century, the name Silicon Valley was given to San Francisco, as many of the largest tech companies in the world began to make the Bay Area their homes. San Francisco would begin to take the lessons learned from 1906 and apply it from there on out. Thanks to updated seismic code, they built a city that can better withstand the frequent earthquakes they face sitting directly on top of the San Andreas Fault. Eventually, there will be another earthquake of a similar magnitude or even higher. And while it may still cause destruction and loss of life, it shouldn't be anywhere near as bad as the 1906 earthquake and fire, an event that destroyed an entire city.